Okay, so you need to ask yourself these questions. What context is he writing this in? Okay, for these things to pertain to you, then there are certain terms and conditions, that these people were meeting that you also need to meet. Otherwise, you're coming from a completely different uh, point of reference, right? All right, and so then you might take this knowledge and these words into a totally different direction, which makes sense to you, but has nothing to do with what Peter was talking about. Okay, so it's important to have this foundation knowledge of truth, which comes through apostles set within your heart, so that you can draw from that well of knowledge, okay, which is common to all true believers, right? Because this foundation of truth hasn't changed. Okay, Christ is the same. He's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, and He is the same from that He always was. Okay, from before the creation. Okay, before Adam and Eve. Okay, before there ever was this world. Okay, this dimension in which we live. Okay, and also after, He's the same. Okay, so also is this foundation knowledge of truth. Now the covenants have changed. Okay, but that doesn't change the foundation knowledge of truth. All right, so uh, let's continue on here. So he says, you also are, in other words, by this same pattern. Okay, same pattern, same design. The pattern of the design is set by God, and it's revealed, okay, by His grace through spiritual government. He does this through His apostles. This is why apostles are called the master builders. Okay, they are knowledge stewards who receive the blueprint and the design, okay, as concerning the plan of God for our faith, right? So that our faith can become constructive and not destructive. The activity of our faith is only constructive, all right, in the eyes of God, all right, when it is joined to Christ, who sanctifies our faith, okay, and our sacrifices of faith are laid upon the altar of Christ. Apart from that, okay, it's not acceptable to God. It will not meet His standard for righteousness. Okay, it does not meet His expectations. He will therefore condemn it as being, uh, 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 you know, being offensive to Him. Okay, so let's go on here. So you also as lively stones. Now, as lively stones, we have to do with that we are His offspring by the Spirit and are no longer building with iniquity. Okay, we are His offspring by the Spirit, and we are no longer building with iniquity. Okay, we are now increasing in the substance and the likeness of God. Okay, this is what takes place within the soul through regeneration. Okay, if you're not experiencing regeneration, right, then you're not a lively stone, right? Then you're not one of the ones that he's referring to. He's talking to those who are experiencing regeneration, who know what it means to experience regeneration. Okay, they don't imagine what it's like for Christ to manifest Himself to them because they're experiencing that every day. Okay, just as we are today as we continue to keep covenant with God. Now, when he has to do with the spiritual house, okay, as stones of the tower, all right, we must conform to the standard and the design of the Lord. Okay, now you can read about the tower. It's in the lost books of the Bible, and it's the book of Hermas. I don't remember if it's the first, second, or third book. I'd have to look at my notes. But anyway, he has a vision as concerning the building of the tower, okay, and the stones being laid within the tower, okay, have to meet the standards of Christ, who is who is overseeing the building of the tower. Okay, and I had a dream about this tower also. I saw a vision of this tower within a dream. It was just a glimpse of the tower. Actually, it wasn't as elaborate as what Hermas experienced, but it's just incredible, absolutely awe-inspiring. But okay, this is that building that we're talking about here. Okay, this spiritual house. Okay, now a house has a foundation, doesn't it? Okay, it's got a foundation, it's got a framework, there's structure. Okay, these things have to be present in your faith. Okay, in order for you to be experiencing the work of Christ within the soul. Okay, if your faith lacks structure and the framework and the boundaries, then how do you know whether your faith is meeting God's expectations or not. Okay, how do you know if you're within Christ or without Christ? How do you know uh, uh, where you're at in the plan of God if you don't know what the plan of God is? Okay, or what stage in the plan of God unfolding we're in? Okay, if you don't know the days and the weeks, okay, how would you know these things? Okay, it's important for you to know these things. And some people want to tell you that truth is, searching for truth is a journey, and that there's virtue in the journey. Okay, and they want to say that anybody that has truth or says they have truth is a liar. Okay, I've heard people tell me that before, which is really quite interesting. That was coming from someone who was appointed an elder in that particular church that he was in. That they actually had no expectation of truth. Now, how can you serve God and meet His expectations without truth? Hey, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. If you have not truth, you have not Christ. Very simple. Okay. If you don't have Christ, you can't please God. It's very simple. So if you think that faith is a journey to truth, okay, then your faith is always without Christ. I mean, that's what you're saying. So that's justifying sin. Okay. Now, sinning has to do uh, with resisting the grace of God. Okay, it's faithlessness. It has to do with faithlessness. Okay, your faith must be joined to Christ, building with the substance of His kingdom. Okay, to be approved by God. Okay, that's faith. Right, building with other knowledge, other tools. Okay, and other substance is faithlessness. Okay, that's evil. Okay, that's evil in the sight of God. Now, to man, evil is anything that man finds offensive or that works against man's aspirations. Okay, but God will set policy against man's aspirations. Quite often, many of the people say that the judgments of God are evil, when in fact they're the judgments of God. Okay, you notice if you go back in through the scriptures, uh, people didn't used to have confusion about what the judgments of God were. Okay, they used to recognize the judgments of God. Now they don't. Now they want to call them, many other things. Okay, natural disasters, Mother Nature. They want to call it, freaks of nature or global warming or whatever the case may be. Okay, but God reigns sovereign over this dimension. Okay, He is in control. Okay, uh, and you don't want to be confused about that. As Jesus said, right, that even a sparrow doesn't hit the ground without God's attention. Okay, so, and that's a loose paraphrase, I know, but you can recognize what I'm talking about there. So make no doubt about that. But let's go on here. I don't want to get too off track here. So he says, you also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood. Now, holy priesthood, that defines our function, doesn't it? Okay, our function, our purpose, and our understanding of His plan. Okay, God has called us to the priesthood of Jesus Christ. Okay, many people try to find their calling in life. All right, and I've heard that used for everything you can imagine. Okay, I know some people that think their calling is, to go to foreign countries and do mission work, or to serve God in a ministry at like soup kitchens or wherever the case may be. Okay, and that those activities, all right. It's not that there's anything wrong with those activities, but that's not the calling. Okay, God calls us to the priesthood. Okay, we're called to the priesthood. You can serve God as a priest and do those other things too. Okay, but those aren't the calling. Those aren't a ministry. Okay, that's not how we serve God. That's how we serve man. Right, and we can be benevolent towards one another. Okay, but that's not faith. Right, there's nothing wrong with benevolence. Okay, but it's not faith. The the thing that's wrong about it is calling that faith. Okay, or in other words, trying to attach spiritual significance to that which is not spiritually significant. Okay, atheists can be benevolent to one another. Right, that is not the fruit of faith. Okay, by any means, and there's a lot of confusion about that too. I've seen people argue back and forth about that based upon that you can't be ethical anyway, I don't even want to get into those disputes. It's crazy, but there's entire communities where they're advertising on the sides of buses, the atheists versus Christians and that sort of thing, and it's both sides are rather comical. Okay, there's a lot of confusion in that. All right, uh, what God does is justify faith in Christ. All right, well, you have to know what Christ. You have to understand the boundaries and the restrictions that God set, okay, to the covenant of Christ for you to know what's within Christ and what's without Christ. If you don't know that, you can't abide in Christ. You want to abide in Christ, of course. All right, we have a heart and a desire to please God. Well, how can you do that without truth? You can't. So seek truth. Okay. I was seeking God fervently for truth, right? When I came into contact and was introduced to Chief Apostle Eric, okay, who simply shared truth with me and unfolded this mystery to me. Okay, and as I partook of this knowledge, okay, the Father bore witness to this knowledge, just as I'm telling you that as you partake of this knowledge, the Father will bear witness to Christ in this knowledge to you too. Okay, there will be no doubt as you embrace this knowledge and make application with it. Okay, exercising your faith with this knowledge. All right, that you will experience the fullness and the reality of Christ. Okay, you will have tangible substance within your soul that nobody can dispute. Nobody can speak against that because that it's tangible evidence which you can measure. Okay, they can't measure, but you can measure it. All right, they can tell you that it's unmeasurable, but they're not going to be able to convince you of that because you're able to measure it, right? And you will experience that. I experienced that, and you'll experience that too. So I'm quite thankful for this knowledge. So let's go on here. So this is the priesthood to which we're called. It's a holy priesthood. Okay, holiness has to do with using that which the Lord has sanctified to separate yourself from the world unto God. All right. Sanctification has to do with what God has provided for that separation. Okay. Um, so this holy priesthood is one which is separated, all right, from the false knowledge of the world, okay, from the tools of iniquity. Okay, we're building only with that which is pure, with that which is holy, okay, that which is sanctified by God. Okay, so that which we are becoming active with and actively engaging in, okay, will meet God's expectations. Just like if you were to build a house for somebody, okay, which if you're not a house builder, that might not make sense to you. But let's say you're going to have somebody build a house for you. Okay, you got a house and you want a house built, and you hire somebody to do it. Okay, you're going to give them a plan, right? And you're going to say, well, this is what I want the house to look like. This is how big I want it to be. This is how many stories I want it to have, and how many rooms I want it to have, and I want the kitchen over here, and all the right. And you're going to tell them all this, and you're going to say, when this is built, I'm going to, this is going to be great. And then the builder comes in and he builds a different house. And you wanted brick and he doesn't use brick. And you wanted a ranch and he builds a two-story, right? He changed everything about it. And you say, well, what's this? He says, well, this is your house. I said, well, this isn't my house. This isn't what I expected. I expected the plans that I provided for you. He says, well, this is better. Wait till you see these nifty things that I added to it. You're going to love this. This is incredible. Well, that's what false faith is to God. It's people doing that. Okay, they're coming to God and saying, that that whole Christ thing you provided was interesting, but where do you see what I got? Okay, that's what they're trying to do. Um, that would be unholy priesthood. Okay, because it's using different substance, different knowledge, different tools. Okay, and coming up with a different design, different pattern. Okay, there's no life in that. God will not breathe life into that design. Okay, it has to be from incorruptible seed. It has to be this cornerstone which is provided by God. Okay, Christ alone. Okay, this is why we need living apostles in order to provide stewardship to direct our faith into Christ. Because apart from that, the heart will wander. You see this all throughout the Old Testament. Okay, and you see it in the New Testament too. You'll see where the apostles were addressing that. Okay, they were warning that it was going to take place. Okay, that after their passing, that there'd be many people going off into many different directions with this knowledge.